when you're able to spend your life doing work that makes you feel good and that you're proud of, it's a hard feeling to beat. And so I'm excited to cover all of those aspects and what I've found to be necessary pieces of the puzzle, from wellness, from passion, from health, from marketing, from finance. And so I look to find different people who have unique perspectives on all of those functions and really explore them.
Welcome to Well Said, Finger Lakes, the podcast where we speak with businesses, organizations, and interesting people from in and around the Finger Lakes region of New York State. My name is Jeremiah Craig, and we're here in the live room in Well Said Media in Ithaca, New York. Our guest today is a serial entrepreneur and one of the owners and founders of Well Said Media. Please welcome our guest, Chris Kusznir.
Thanks for having me.
How's it going, Chris? Thank you for joining on the podcast. It's the first time we've had a co-owner of Well Said Media, so this is going to be a fun podcast, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Looking forward to it. Long time coming.
Yeah, I know, right? So let's give everybody a little bit of background, a little bit of perspective, and start out with what it was like founding this company right here in Ithaca. Can you give us a little background with the origin story of Well Said Media?
Absolutely, absolutely. So it's amazing how courageous, ambitious, or perhaps just stupid you can be when you're young. The company was originally formed, it was just a couple of us in college, and we just had big dreams, big ideas, and we knew that we loved media. Over the years, the company took some different directions, and in 2015, we really kind of synced up and really started to identify our core values and our strategic plan. We rebranded as Well Said Media. And that's when we really sort of officially took home here in Ithaca, New York. Since then, it's been a really interesting journey, getting to know the different businesses, getting to know the areas, and sort of being really ambassadors for the area and for the local businesses.
Yeah, and it seems like a lot of people who came together to start the business initially were from Ithaca College. Did you go there?
Correct. Yeah, but we all met in Ithaca College. I thought I was setting out. So originally I was going for script writing, and my background, I had been very into writing from a very young age. I started writing poetry when I was in 6th grade, and the very first thing I wrote got published. And it was only a few months later that I found myself reading at Disneyland in Anaheim, California, in front of an audience of 5,000 people. And from those experiences, that would kind of continue on over the years. It would be my week of stardom. It was kind of a surreal thing that every year for about a week I would go and compete in these poetry slams at these different places like Disneyland, and have a bit of a following and be signing autographs and kind of getting the celebrity treatment, and then you go back to your old shoes in your hometown, and it's a very jarring thing. But those experiences, I think, largely fueled my ambition to move into media specifically. Just seeing how different forms of media and media arts can touch people and can inspire people, and being able to sort of direct that kind of inspiration was probably the most inspiring experience I've had my whole life.
Going to Ithaca College and meeting everybody there, I mean, it had to have been kind of scary to come out of college and be like, you know what, instead of trying to find a job, script writing or in media, I'm going to make my own job and start my own business with all these other folks here. What was that experience? What did that feel like? Because that's something that a lot of people are really scared to do, coming right out of college with all this student debt. And you're like, well, I'm not going to worry about anything else. I'm just going to do what I want to do.
So that's, the whole thing is we were still in college.
Oh, wow.
Originally, the story really starts freshman year of college. And how it went down, when you're discovering a passion, I guess people have a tendency to either think they're great or think they're terrible. I thought I was great until I encountered somebody who really had talent that I didn't have. And at that point, I started realizing, well, maybe that's not but that doesn't mean I can't be involved. And that's when I started focusing on building a team. But really, in the beginning, the effort was we knew we were going to be making stuff just by nature of trying to graduate. And basically, without claiming ownership over the content we created, Ithaca College would own that media. And so the initial inspiration or effort was really to protect our own creations in the formation of an LLC and the acquisition of some equipment. The initial seed money, I actually used my student loan money. And this, of course, was something that wasn't really very well thought out. Being 19 at the time, it was the first time that I had a bucket of money because I grew up with very little money. I mean, I'd been working jobs throughout. I think my first job was 14 years old, and I was working there at Dunkin' Donuts. Meanwhile, going to school, and I always managed my roles in sports teams. I was captain of wrestling, captain of football, and that was very demanding. But I always balanced that with work, so it was always about earning. And then all of a sudden, I had this money, and it gave me the first time to really think about chasing dreams. And without allowing myself to really consider the things I should be afraid of, I just kind of started putting one foot in front of the other. I was very fortunate to meet Nicholas, to meet Connor and Hillary, and to see that, we all had something that we could bring together and that we all had a common vision. Really, being able to identify that, being able to recognize your own strengths and weaknesses, that's critical. The older I've gotten over the years, the more businesses that I've been involved in, the more I've realized that that's really the most important thing you can do is, identify your strengths, weaknesses, your core values, and your passions. Because when you're able to align those things, that's when the real magic starts to happen. Starting, running, and growing or failing in business can feel so many different ways. Sometimes failing can feel amazing. Sometimes succeeding can feel very empty. All of this is going to be a reflection of how that business pertains to your core values, your passions.
So you mentioned that you started out freshman year of college and you just are putting one foot in front of the other. And you're searching for these core values, or you're sort of recognizing your strengths and weaknesses. When you got together with everybody, what were the core values that you sort of bonded over to eventually rebrand and make Well Said Media?
We really saw that there wasn't an established media production company. And of course, you got to analyze, why that is. At the time, running a media company is very expensive. Film was still largely the standard. It was just going into the digital transition, which now certainly changes the game. But at the time, the equipment, the gear, the personnel, labor was out of line with what people's perception of value was for these media services. And so it made the undertaking a lot more ambitious than I think we realized. But we knew we liked where we were and we liked what we were doing. And we wanted to keep doing what we were doing where we were. This was in lack of, because there was no established game in town, that was kind of the only way to make it happen. And so a group of crazy kids decided to, show the world what they could do. And all these years later, thankfully we're still here.
I love the story. It's awesome. You mentioned earlier as well that you started with your college student loan to build the initial thing that would become the company. Now, looking back, I can't imagine you'd recommend other people do something like that. I'm not sure. Maybe you would.
No, most certainly not. Most certainly not.
Maybe there's a different process to go by getting loans from maybe a bank as a small business or something. Looking back on it now, or with even your other companies that you've started, how should somebody choose a bank or choose a means of funding for their new small business?
Well, I would walk the cat back a little bit on that and say before you even go out looking for money,
Yeah.
the most important thing you start with is a business plan.
Okay.
And a business plan, it's remarkable how many people start businesses, have had businesses, have been operating businesses for years without a business plan. And the reason that you do a business plan, it's not some. I remember years ago. So one of my other businesses in town is Top Shelf Liquor, which is a retail wine and liquor store. About a year after I opened Top Shelf Liquor, I assisted my father to open Liberty Liquors over in Lansing. When I opened Top Shelf Liquor, admittedly, it kind of broke my dad's heart a little bit. My dad always wanted to go into business, into a family business. Talk about identifying, core values, strengths, weaknesses. I knew from an early age that my father and I were not meant to work together per se. We had very different approaches about how we would do things. I'd sort of want to meticulously plan something, and my dad was an adapter. And, he didn't really see, he would always say to me, I don't have time to plan. And that one phrase would kind of tell me everything I needed to know. Like, that's where you're so wrong. That's a concoction of your creation, So having a plan, one, is going to help you identify, your core values. Is this really something I want to do? What's it really going to cost? What can I charge for it? Is there a demand for that? And what's the future look like? How do I grow it? How do I get out of it? If things aren't looking how they want to be. Once you have a plan, it starts to become clearer where you go for money, because there's going to be the reality is there's always somebody out there looking to put money in something. It's not always a bank. One of my favorite entrepreneurial stories is how Kevin Smith did the movie Clerks. I don't know if you're familiar with this story, but anyone who's not familiar with Kevin Smith, he's an incredible film producer, notably, Jay and Silent Bob, Dogma, to name a few. But the movie Clerks, if you ever watch it, it's about two clerks who work in a convenience store. And many people watch this movie and don't ever notice that all the blinds are always closed. The reason that all the blinds are always closed in that movie was because that was Kevin's real job. And he convinced his boss to let him film there after hours. To raise the money to buy the film, Kevin Smith sent letters to just about everyone he knew asking for any small amount of money with a promise to pay back that and a little more. Even if it was $10, you got 11 coming back, whatever it was. And he raised something like $65,000, which if anybody who knows about celluloid film, that's hardly enough to buy the raw materials, let alone anything else. But he did it, and it wasn't just some project film. Obviously, Clerks has become a cult classic,
Mm-hmm.
And it's a true testament to the fact that where there's a will, there's a way, But that would have never happened without a very clear vision over what he was trying to do, what he needed to raise. And so, I don't think he started writing letters before he had an effective plan.
Right. What did the business plan for Well Said Media look like when you guys started that? Or was that before, you had that initial click where, we need a business plan to go into this, and you kind of made it halfway through?
Yeah, we didn't know what we didn't know, at the time. We were so well, and truth be told, I think we started creating content, and very quickly we realized, we were the only ones doing it. And I think really it was sort of a testament and a caution to excitement. You can see how when you love what you do, passion can cause movement. Movement isn't always progress, though. And so, looking back over our trajectory, I'm sure we would all agree that, there were things we could have done more efficiently. There were avenues to grow the company that perhaps we didn't see. Even today, we recently went through a strategic planning session with another local business owner, Patricia Madison, formerly Patricia Brown, who's half of Integrated Business Ventures. And they do work in town locally on strategic planning, identifying core values. They help companies that do anywhere from $5 to $20 million in revenue either fix financial problems, come up with a strategic plan, position themselves for sale or for exit strategy. And she's become a good friend and a mentor to me. One of my other companies locally is Key Brokers Real Estate, and we work together on a lot of projects as their sales often entail commercial real estate, and so I can lend my assistance there. But in working with Patty, we realized that some of the best potential clients for media services are ones that we would never approach, namely manufacturing companies who may spend a lot of time and money and research to create something that's very difficult to explain. And what, a picture's worth 1,000 words. How many is video worth?
Right.
There's no better way to explain something than in a video. And even going through the strategic planning process, I had a huge light bulb as I realized, the key to everything in business, in life, I would say, is strategic partnership. You can't do anything without the right people around you. And that can be, in your own company. That can pertain to your city, depending how big you go. I mean, that can pertain to your country, your market, whatever it is, In working with people like Patty, who's already serving companies to help them identify their core values and their strategic plan, their mission, their vision. Often what is produced from this is a document, documented plan that people can follow. But that document can also come in the form of a video, and that's an avenue that we hadn't prior really looked at. Mm-hmm. And perhaps in my eyes, one of the most valuable for a lot of local companies, because being able to very quickly, concisely, and clearly and accurately explain who you are, what you do, and why it's special, that's really where all businesses need to start.
Yeah. You mentioned strategic partnerships, and that's something that I feel this area is very good at sort of cultivating, right? Mm-hmm. People in business around here, they realize that strategic partnerships are really important. Do you have any thoughts on that? And are there any other values of being in this area specifically as a small business?
Oh, absolutely. As I mentioned, people are everything. And what I would say is, there's one question that I've always asked. I ask just about everybody. And the reason I ask is because it's amazing how many people will say yes to the question and then question the corollary, I guess. And that question is hindsight 2020? And of course, everyone I've ever asked this question says yes. And why this makes me smile is because you then have to recognize that if hindsight's 2020, that if you can build your awareness in the present moment and be conscious of the things that are placed in front of you, that the tools you need are always there. There's an old phrase that says, all you need to get all you want, you already have. And I found it to be one of the truest things. An area like Ithaca is special because of the presence of higher academia. You have Cornell University, you have Ithaca College. I didn't even finish Ithaca College, and I walked away with several companies that I was able to form because of the people I met in college. After sophomore year, I dropped out. Life threw me some curveballs. At that time, we had already started this company, and I had gotten my real estate license working with another local entrepreneur, legendary Audrey Edelman, who Audrey was an incredible woman. She started a local real estate brokerage, and with just one brokerage, actually won the Ernst & Young's Entrepreneur of the Year award, which is incredibly ambitious. To explain how ambitious, years later, she sold her company to Merle Whitehead and Realty USA, which at the time was the largest privately owned real estate brokerage in the country. And Merle had 55 offices and was up as a candidate for the Ernst & Young's Entrepreneur of the Year award. Just to explain the gravity of that award. And so at that time, I thought my life was over. Having to drop out for personal reasons that were devastating. This was a case where I really thought I was doing the right thing. Well, I guess a moment of honesty. I was expecting to be a father. And this took me by great surprise. And in response to this, I felt it irresponsible to continue accruing debt through college, and I felt I needed to start repaying debt. At the end of freshman year, around the same time as starting the company, I had convinced my father to help me purchase a home. And the deal was very simple. I didn't want to live on campus, and I figured if they could help me get a mortgage, I'd rent the rooms, pay the mortgage, and I told them I'd give them the house back at the end. I got basically a free ride for room and board, and they would get equity and a solid investment. And so we all agreed. That was the connection to Audrey Edelman. So we purchased through them, and after dropping out, I went back there and said, "Help me, I need a job." And she said, "Well, you're in the wrong place. Real estate isn't a job. This is starting a business." And she did everything she could to talk me out of it. But like I said, when you're young and ambitious and desperate, boy, you will barrel through no's like there's nobody's business. So as you get older, no's start to hit you a little harder. They start to tax you just a little bit more. But man, I wasn't hearing no at that time, and thankfully was able to learn a new skill. And so, this is also kind of a tale where, man, if I look back, the number of times that I thought my life was over, the number of times that I thought a mistake was so catastrophic that I would never be able to rectify it. And the number of mistakes that I've made and rectified and still stand here, happy and successful in this town and feeling fulfilled with what I do. I only say that just because so many business owners out there so often feel that they are caught on an island. It is lonely at the top. And when it's just your world and your small business and you're eating the challenges, sometimes it can feel like you're just never going to get out and, that you've made the worst mistake ever. But so often in life, the greatest blessings come wrapped as the worst disguises. Mm-hmm. They come wrapped as tragedies. And it's just a moment in time. And the more that you can get good with that and know that everything swings on a pendulum, there's going to be good days, there's going to be bad days. But you just got to keep your eyes on that vision and that plan. And that's again the importance of having that plan. It's your compass. Mm-hmm. It's the way that you can get your bearings when something's knocked you off of them and you're not sure which direction is forward. So that's why it's so important to have something, a reference point to go back to and say, oh yeah, right. No. I planned for this. This is okay. I knew I was going to get a hit here. I knew I was going to have to take a knee, but this ain't the end of the game,
Right. So that's a lot that was a great answer. Thank you so much for that. That was awesome. The overwhelming nature of everything that you just said, family stuff, business stuff, going at it alone. This can lead a lot of people to get burnout, even if it's in their plan to see this coming. How do you recognize the fact that you might be getting into a burnout, and how do you take steps to come back from that? Is it always just a plan, or is there something else that you can help get you through the burnout?
Oh, true honesty. Learning how to be absolutely honest with yourself is first and foremost, is paramount. I'll continue on this story because it leads into it perfectly. So about a year after I dropped out of school, a couple friends who I had met in college, it was an interesting time. I was working in real estate, and at the time, I think I might have even started where I'd gotten a corporate sales job for Yellow Book, doing ad sales. It was truly golden handcuffs, and I hated that job. But it paid so well I couldn't walk away from it. It was the only outside sales job, and by outside sales, it means you're not working in an office. You're not constrained to regular office hours. You have daily quotas and objectives, or weekly quotas and objectives, but by and large, nobody's chasing you down, wagging the finger, unless you're not making sales. But I was selling a product I didn't believe in. I grew up large. I barely remembered the phone books, other than ordering food from the menu section. Wasn't something I really felt I was benefiting. But at this time, my friends who were in college, and some of them had, family money and had resource. And it was funny because they were looking at me green with envy because I was out, wearing a suit all day. And, to them, it seemed very, very glamorous what I was doing. Meanwhile, I was looking at them green with envy going, what I would give to take this suit off and be back with you guys in college, And around the time I was driving back from Binghamton, as you come right down the Route 96 corridor, and right next to Ithaca College, there's a plaza there. And at the time, it was a restaurant called King Sub. And there was a laundromat, sandwich shop, gas station, and a proper restaurant. And what I saw as I was driving by was people wheeling out the machines from the laundromat. And I didn't really know what happened, but about a week before that, me and these two friends, George and Pete, we had been driving by there, and one of them said, to be honest, I don't remember whose idea it was. Somebody said, man, that'd make a great liquor store. And that's stuck in my head. Now, mind you, at this time, I'm 21 years old. We're all 21 years old. I didn't even know if it was legal for us to open a liquor store. But something came over me, and I spun around. And I pulled up into the store, and what I had found out was that the people who were renting that space had gone belly up. And that was the bank pulling machines out to sell them. And I walked in and inquired, and I said, what's going on with that space? Is the property? How do I reach the property owner? And the guy pointed to the chair behind me, and he said, "That's him right there." And I went and I had a chat with Jim Rogan, who owns Rogan's Corner, and I'll never forget it because I said, Jim, I think that'd make a great liquor store. And he looked at me and he said, "You must be crazy. You'll never make it." Long and short of it was, from the moment that became conceptualized, put out into the air, there was no stopping Top Shelf. Top Shelf was an instant hit. Top Shelf, we just celebrated our 15-year anniversary. It's been a great business, easy to run retail business. This is also why it's so important to look with equal scrutiny at your successes and fails, and to know why they happen. So a year after this, I was on such a high from the success of it that I felt I couldn't lose. And I got a call from a guy who actually was my boss at my second job here in Ithaca. My second job here when I dropped out of school, and I should have mentioned that too. That was the other part. When I dropped out of school, I mentioned I thought my life was over, and so I did get with Audrey Edelman, and she advised me to start going to real estate school. So I started going to real estate school during the day, but I also needed a paying job. Chili's Bar and Grill had just opened in Ithaca 6 months prior to this. And I remember I went down and I got hired, and I told the manager there, his name was also Chris. I said, "Listen, I want to work everything. I want to be in every position. I'll wait tables, I'll bus, I'll wash dishes, I'll bartend, I'll cook. I want it all." And he looked at me kind of puzzled, and I was like, "This is my culinary school, and you just gave me a scholarship, And he kind of like looked at me funny, but that's exactly what I did. I worked every stinking job and covered every shift I could until I knew how to run a restaurant. A year later, after opening Top Shelf, this same Chris would call me, and he had actually worked for the Subway organization. And he said, "Man, I saw what you did at that liquor store. It was impressive. You ever think about what would you think about a Subway franchise?" And from early on, I had a huge desire to be a part of something big. And so I was very allured to big names, something I recognized. I also grew up in a town that didn't have many franchises, so franchises were very exotic. Subway was the one we had. And so I got in, and what he told me was that it was failing, and that it could be acquired for less money than normal. And long and short of it was, I decided I wanted to make a play for this. And, at the time I went and I put together my plan, and I got rejected by every bank in town. And, that rather than looking at why the banks were saying no, I decided, no, they're wrong. I'm going to show them. So then I went to my advertisers in Yellow Book. And one of my clients who owned a local insurance agency actually bit and funded me. Unfortunately, it turned out to be a bad mistake for both of us. It was that was a terrible investment, and it was a bloodbath for me. It was 5 years of just losing every day. From equipment failure to the economics just never worked. Around this time, part of it was also where we were. We were located on the Ithaca Commons. The Ithaca Commons at this time was in rough shape. I think we were sporting a 70% vacancy rating or more. There was also an election coming up, and there was particularly at the time there was a political movement to ban smoking outdoors in Ithaca. The problem, as I saw it with this, was that the ban was not citywide. It was being strategically placed, and one of those places was the Commons, which I thought was crazy because Commons was failing. With a 70% vacancy rate, I didn't think that was a time to impose special restrictions. And so I did about the craziest thing I ever did, and I ran for mayor. This started because of I went to a council meeting, and I remember what my concern was that they were looking at information from one side. The information that was being used to give fuel to this movement was based on the New York State statewide smoking ban, which was, of course, was statewide. And I saw that not relevant to, a checkerboard. If you draw one policy for a map, that's going to have very different results than if you pick little places to put it. And so I then went and compiled information from various different sources, and I brought it to the council meeting where this was being discussed. And upon presenting my information to the best I could, obviously this is just me explaining what I was doing, I got told by one of the council people, thank you so much for doing that. That's great information. We'll look at that right after we vote. My head about exploded, if you catch the implication of that. And that was the moment I decided, like hell, I'm going to run for mayor. And now, mind you, I was broke, overworked, no team, no experience. And I didn't want to win. I didn't want the job. But I knew that if I was up there, nobody could tell me to shut up. Nobody, I could call BS when the opportunity came up. And I had every intention of doing that. What I didn't expect to have happen was once the debate started, I started to get steam. Running as an independent in a town where, the Democratic Party has complete and total control. I mean, even so much there was, there's well more. I think there was twice as many registered independents as there was Republicans even. But you really, on paper looking at it, you don't think you have a shot. And then I started going to these debates, and some people started supporting me, and all of a sudden I was in for real. Now, at this point, my business partner had some life circumstances hit him from the liquor store. Now, he also was a co-owner in Jack's Grill up in College Town. And so I found myself running for mayor, running my Subway, running Jack's Grill, and was expecting a child on the way. And I started to recognize burnout. The first signs were I started being bitter towards my customers. And I particularly remember the day I was in Subway and we opened. Now, at this time, the schedule was brutal. I was showing up there at 6 a.m. and closing at 2 a.m. And I lived in the apartment directly above stairs. So I would break through middle points of the day, sleep for 20 minutes, come back down. I mean, I was a machine, not something I could do again. But that morning, I was trying to cook the bread and get the breakfast set up ready. And a customer came in for breakfast, and I treated her awful. I was like outraged, and when she left, I fired myself. And that was the first of 3 times I would fire myself from various businesses. And each time it was such an important measure to recognize that I was becoming toxic to my own business. Obviously, I didn't fire myself from involvement, but I could no longer work as a clerk. I was performing the wrong functions. And so in recognizing burnout is very real. And what I would say is that if you find yourself not having fun with what you're doing, you're there. If you started out loving what you're doing and you didn't change what you're doing, but you stopped loving what you're doing, it probably is burnout. You need to stop and take a look. And human beings have the mentality and the tenacity to think we can just push through it. And we often think that's wise. Now, years later, I've learned a whole lot of other things about mental health, wellness. I teach yoga now. I spent a lot of time in Bali finding myself. And I realized that, I saw this analogy the other day. It's like when you're flying, the first thing they tell you, if the masks come down, put one on yourself before assisting anyone else. Why? Because if you don't take care of yourself, you're useless to everyone else. And that is one of the most important things to recognize in business is that, we all have our reasons for why we do what we do. But at the end of the day, if we don't take care of ourselves, those reasons become irrelevant.
Yeah, so that was awesome. I love that story and the setup and everything. That was great. I really appreciate it. It's going to help a lot of people. It's helping me right now just listening to it. What are those steps to help yourself? Are they different for everybody? Have you noticed through speaking with other entrepreneurs and business owners in the area when they hit a burnout that there's a pattern of things that they do for themselves to come out the other side?
Yeah. If I'm going to oversimplify, change. Change. You got to stop doing what you're doing the way you're doing it. And everybody knows that age-old definition of insanity, right? Keep doing the same thing, expecting a different result. Yet it is amazing how deceptively attractive that proposition is. It's hard to change. It's hard to stop. and to give yourself time. But whether it's a vacation, and most often when this comes up, the automatic response is, I can't afford that. But the truth is, you can't afford not to. But it's just easier to see the immediate cost of a ticket and a hotel stay. And it's not so easy to see the intangible cost of inevitable burnout, which can be catastrophic, will be catastrophic if it is allowed to grow to the point that it will inevitably grow if not addressed. What I would say is pause. I love that word. For me, that's a term I usually throw in meditation. And this can come in various different ways. It doesn't need to be. I use the same analogy with regards to fitness. I'm a gym rat. I love to spend time in the gym, and people always ask me. I'm gonna be 40 years old this year, and I'm in the best shape of my life. People always ask me, "What's your secret?" It's very easy. Show up every day. No matter what it looks like. Doesn't mean I'm gonna go and lift crazy. No, I'm just gonna walk through the door and stretch some days. Some days I'm gonna walk through the door, say, "Congrats, I did it." Turn around and walk out. What I've learned is that it's so important to recognize and celebrate the wins and to set achievable goals. I call them micro goals. And why? Because life is a game of momentum. The moment, it's so easy to create negative momentum, and positive momentum is not so easy. Positive momentum is very fickle. You can spend days and days and months building it, have one bad day and lose half of it, And so this is what I always say is set little goals for yourself. And sometimes those goals need to not be economic. I'm gonna meditate for 10 minutes. I'm gonna take a day off. This day in particular, I'm gonna shut my phone off. I'm gonna spend time with my wife. I'm gonna go out with my family. I'm gonna go sit in the park and do nothing. And recognizing that those actions of nothing are as important as any other action in the day, it's critical. The moment you realize that, then it starts to become a lot easier to identify how to make those changes, how to implement those pauses. Because really, it can be as simple as 10 minutes of meditation a day. I swear, anybody who commits to that, you want a real quick secret to change your life? Meditate for 10 minutes a day. Start your day every morning, as soon as you get up, before you have time to consider all your stressors, before you have time to consider what you're excited about. Stop. Meditate. I'll tell you the reason I meditate every day, it goes back to what I was saying about hindsight being 20/20. Okay? One of the big revelations I had was in recognizing that everything I always needed, I did always have. It was always right in front of me. More often than not, I didn't see it. And so my actions in meditation every day are very simple. I get very clear on what I intend to do. What's my purpose for that day? And then I wipe the slate clean of all my inhibitions, all my fears, all of everything. And the reason I do that is just so that I can purely be present to recognize what I know will inevitably be placed in front of me because it's exactly what I need. Now, those things are always there. A lot of us breeze right past them, but those of us who stop and smell the roses get to keep some and get to remember what they smell like,
I love that. Thank you so much. That's going to help a lot of people, and it's going to help me too. I'm just thinking about how I can apply this stuff to my process and everything as well. So thank you. This sort of leads into my next question, which will be one of my last questions. We'll also have some closing things as well. But I also want to talk about this, in addition to burnout, there's maybe some other things that hold some businesses back from reaching that next level, whether that next level is the life they want for themselves, revenue growth in their business, or just attention for their business altogether. What are some of the things that you find hold businesses back the most?
Oh, that goes right into the strategic planning and the core values. Success can look like a lot of things. You can be financially successful and not feel successful. Some of the people I've known over the years who've made the most money had the highest level of hatred for their life. They felt the emptiest inside. They were digging a never-ending hole. It's remarkable how grass is always greener. You got somebody who's feeling fulfilled and passionate, and they're going to look at them and go, man, I wish I had in my wallet what you got in your wallet. And they go, yeah, you can have it all. I want what you got. The truth is that when you are so fortunate to have made clear what you love to do, what you're good at, and what's special, and your offering, what you spend your time doing, is true to that, is true to your true self. That is how you really break through. And true self can be pertaining to a company. It can be a big company, but when that company was created, when it was born, just like a human being, what was its purpose? Was there one? Sometimes there wasn't a clear one, and that's when you got to stop 10 years, 20 years in and go, whoa, hold up. Do we know what we're doing and why we're doing it? It's funny, that hit me. So I've got a 13-year-old daughter, Madison, and I remember from very early on, from as early as she could understand what I was telling her, the most common thing I would say to her is always know what you're doing and why you're doing it. I think she was about 8 before I realized that I needed to be saying that to myself. That was something that I had missed. That so often, I was, what was it? Denzel Washington said, "Don't confuse movement with progress." And I was lost in that. As long as I was moving, I thought I was making progress, and it was wrong. I mentioned integrated business ventures earlier, and they use what's called a balanced scorecard, which helps you align, your mission, your vision, your values. There's a really old Japanese thing called an ikigai chart, and that's one where I've really started to. That's one that helped me a lot. This was a process I went through in Bali as we kind of uncovered manifestation. Manifestation's a big topic, a growing one here. It's an old one over there, and going through learning about manifestation, this was where we started. We went through and in an ikigai chart, and I might not have this 100% accurate. I'm working off memory, but it's define what you're good at, what the world needs, what you can replicate, and what you can profit from, and you keep kind of going further and further in as you look at this sort of Venn diagram of these overlaps until you get to the bullseye in the center, and usually that list is very short. It's one or two things that you realize that you're good at, that you can replicate, and that the world needs, and that you can make money doing. And when you're able to really pull all that in, whatever your company is, say it's retail, right? Do you just sell everything down your Amazon, or do you sell a really quality product? Say you're a shoe company, maybe you sell right in Ithaca. When you look at how do local companies compete with a Dick's Sporting Goods, And it's very simple, Finger Lakes Running Co. They focus on selling quality running shoes, and the owners are passionate. You can do that. You can take these principles and apply it to any business. Making video, we can get real good at not just making a video, but helping you find a purpose for the video before we make it, so that when we come in, we know that this is just a video, man. This is a method of execution. This is a tool. This is something you're going to use for a very specific purpose. Food, there's a million restaurants out there. Well, the ones that are successful have really lasered in. I used to cook at Maxie's Supper Club in town, and Chick Evans is legendary. It was started by Chick Evans and Dewey Rainey. It was one of the most impressive things I'd ever seen. Those two ran that business for years as a divorced married couple. They started out married, and I worked there as they were divorced. I didn't even know the history because the business ran so smoothly. It was remarkable. Years later, they would, I think Chick would buy out Dewey's shares, and she expanded on her entrepreneurship, bought Franklin Plaza, started Red Feet Wine Market, and, I learned so much from them. But that restaurant, they started in a very small spot. It's still there. And I remember asking, what'd you do? And what happened? We went down to New Orleans. We took a trip, and man, we fell in love. And we thought, man, there's nothing like this. And so they took time and they learned how to make those recipes. They sourced the ingredients, the same ingredients from down there that nobody was getting up here. Even I remember Chick rerouted Steve Connolly's food truck just to get the highest quality fresh daily catches coming in that nobody was getting. And that's why that restaurant's still there, still as successful as it was. Actually, that's a lie. It's 10 times more successful than it was on day one. It's never stopped growing. When you really get clear on what's special about what you're doing, and you see it, oh man, you'll get jazzed up too. I had the fortune to spend some brief time working with various franchises, And I worked with a group following my bad experience with Subway franchise. I realized that there was ways to avoid this. I got in response to in my real estate work, I was selling a local food market and liquor store, and I got a response to that solicitation that was actually a solicitation in and of itself. And the guy said, I want to talk to you about franchises. And I went, hold up, don't use the F word on me. I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to hear about franchises. And he said, well, why is that? Of course, I tell him my story. And he goes, well, you realize that you just went straight there. Like, you didn't even shop around. He was like, if you would have talked to one of us, like, I could have told you day one, that's not for you. Based on the amount of money you got and what you like to do, this is what you should be doing. And that's when I was like, oh, interesting. I actually could get behind that. I could enjoy doing that. And what was cool about it was I got a chance to tour about 300 different companies and, the various models they worked in. And all of these were franchises that were started by one person. And I got to meet those people. And it was so cool to see their origin stories. And every one of them, the most successful, had the most humble beginnings. Mostly, they started with one product. One thing that they just did better than anyone else. And they knew it. And it was enough. One of my favorite stories is Stacy's Pita Chips. A little known thing that what made that company was the giveaway. Stacy's Pita Chips started making those pita chips because the lines to get into the pita place were too long. So she started baking yesterday's, stale pitas into chips and handing them out to the people in line so they wouldn't go away. And of course, today, that's the product, right? That's what made them huge. So you never know where it's going to be, but once you can really get clear on, and if it's not working, that's an important time to do the same exercise. But whether you're in the beginning of the story, the middle of it, or even planning for the end of it, I would say that's the secret sauce. Stop, take a look at what you're doing. A tool that I like to use a lot is, and this isn't just business. I do this in life also. When I hit a wall, when something I can't explain or something is beating me, and I'll just use that as a metaphor for however you want to take it. I like to ask myself, what would somebody smarter than me do in this situation? Would any human being in this situation fail? No. No way. Somebody would take what you got and make a home run out of it. So I try to put myself in their shoes in meditation, and picture myself. It's like working with AI. You get to work with ChatGPT. You got to preface it and tell it who and what persona it embodies before you start to work with it, or you won't get the results you want. And so I kind of take that technique and use it on myself. But it's an interesting exercise you can do, with your core team, with your board of directors, whoever it is, in whatever position you're in.
Great. Thank you so much. I feel like we had a great conversation today. You got lots and lots of knowledge to share, and this is going to be my last time hosting this podcast, Well Said Finger Lakes, as a regular host. It's actually going to be Chris from here on out as the regular host. Where do you feel like you're going to be taking this podcast and Well Said Media here in the future?
My immediate plan is to really interview a lot of local entrepreneurs. I want to get the whole story, all sides of it. I think people have a lot to benefit from hearing, and not just about successes, but the struggles.
Yeah.
The stories of overcoming the challenges, because it is never easy. It's never pie in the sky. It is brutal sometimes, but it's also hell of exciting. And when you're able to spend your life doing work that makes you feel good and that you're proud of, it's a hard feeling to beat. And so I'm excited to cover all of those aspects and what I've found to be necessary pieces of the puzzle, from wellness, from passion, from health, from marketing, from finance. And so I look to find different people who have unique perspectives on all of those functions and really explore them. So along those lines, for any of you local businesses who are watching and are interested and have a story to tell, we would love to hear from you. So please do reach us here at Well Said Media, right in the Community School of Music and Arts in Ithaca, New York.
Thank you so much, Chris. I look forward to listening and watching everything. And if anybody is interested in learning more about Well Said Media or hiring us for video and media services, you can find us at wellsaidmedia.com. Thanks for watching and listening today.